Hello and welcome to another episode of Same Blood, where we have conversations with people. And today, I have the great privilege and honor talking with Aelicia Chocolate Watson. Now, before I get canceled very quickly, please let people know that is in fact your nickname.
That is in fact my nickname, and I gave you permission and others to call me Chocolate.
I think that's how you introduced yourself to me when we met. I'm Chocolate. I was like, oh, okay, all right. Well, then I will call you that.
Yes.
So I met Chocolate a couple months ago.
Yeah.
We were doing a video for an organization, and we were highlighting your organization, which is
Redeemed Women Dallas.
And we're going to get into what Redeemed Women is all about and your story in just a second. Now, we've started these podcasts. We like to give people the opportunity to get to know you a little bit with a list of favorites. Now, in the past, we've been doing where we actually bring a snack in and sit and eat, but then that takes up half the time.
Okay,
and
so I missed out on the snack.
Well, you're not the first person. We've actually skipped at the last few. So,
okay.
But we're going to ask you, what is your favorite snack in case people at home are looking for a new snack option?
So my favorite snack is Turtles chocolate covered almond. Okay. And it's I think it's an almond. Yeah, it is an almond, but it's called Turtle.
Yeah, I know what that is. Those are delicious.
And they got some caramel, and it's really good.
You're the first person that has said turtles, but you know what? That's going to be in the top 3 choices so far.
They're delectable.
I like it. All right. Are you a sports fan at all?
I am a sports fan. I don't have a specific team that I like, but I like all sports. Basketball, football, soccer, hockey.
You're gonna
golf.
tune in and watch? Oh, you watch golf?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know this. This podcast is going to turn into 45 minutes of us talking about how people who don't like golf are just silly. Okay, that's awesome. All right. Now, I asked this question a very specific way. It's, what's your favorite movie? But by favorite movie, I don't mean a movie you think is the best, because sometimes those need a lot of emotional investment. Maybe you don't want to watch them all the time. So really, what I'm wondering is, what movie, if it's on TV, are you always going to stop down and watch at least a few minutes of? What's kind of one of those movies that you're like, oh, I just love that movie, you know?
Yeah, so I am very, very old school. I was raised by my grandparents. So I am in the heat of the night girl.
Okay.
Which is old school movie. I'm talking about the old school.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't remember the actor in here right now.
Well, I love your favorite movie choice, especially because growing up, we used to watch, my brothers and sisters, now we watch a lot of old movies, a lot of old black and white films from way back in the day. And man, some of the acting, you're like, wow, you guys really had to act.
Yeah.
You know, these scenes are 3 minutes long and they don't change camera angles once.
Yeah,
you know,
nothing.
Stage production, pretty much. Awesome. Okay, so we've got favorite snack, movies, sports. Now, this is where we get into the actual meat of the conversation.
Okay.
Right? And this is where we're going to get into your story.
Okay.
Because that's really why you're here. Because I've heard your story. Now, several people we've had on the podcast, I know nothing of their story. I didn't know anything about them until we sat down. And that's fun. But I know. I've heard your story.
Yeah.
So, what I really want to do is just have you, I'll just give the floor to you, and you just kind of work through as much of your story as you want to. We're gonna dive into some stuff as well, but you just want to let people know.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank y'all and the behind the scenes team for having me here. It has been I felt welcomed when I walked through the door. So thank you so much. I am, what I like to call real, uncut. I'm holy with a hen of hood. Pray with me, don't play with me. I just, keep it all the way real, and I'm very authentic. I do life with a lot of different people. And that came because I was raised by a grandmother that was a strong believer that poured into me. But before we get to that, I grew up in all things poverty. I am the oldest of 8 on both sides. I am a product of generational poverty. My mother was a drug addict before she died 2 months ago. My dad is an alcoholic, and he's still alive here in Dallas. I was raped, had a baby at 14, cancer 3 times, homeless, abused. You name it, domestic violence. I've been through all the things, but what you will hear me often say is, but God. And I just feel like where I am today, I feel like that if it had not been for the grace of God, I wouldn't be here standing today. I'm not a victim, I'm victorious. But I also do know that, sometimes having to own your story publicly, is hard. And what I love about my relationship with the Lord, He has just called me to speak bold truth and not live in shame and hurt and fear and guilt, all of those things that really boggle us, what I say, us down. And so that has given me the voice to kind of really speak up and talk about some of my life experiences, but also let people in so they can know how to help me as well. I went to school for early childhood education. I moved out when I was 16 years old, having a baby at 14. So I started my life early, went to school. I worked for the Y. The Y sent me to school, and I got free daycare, and I capitalized off that for 10 years. And I like to joke and say I'm allergic to kids. Yeah. And I'll tell you why here in a minute. And then I did that for 10 years, and then I got into transportation and logistics, and I was a dispatcher, and I did that for like 9 years. And then now I'm in nonprofit, crazy, like all the things. Clearly I love to serve people from the lower level to the upper level. And then, I've been in nonprofit 7 years, but I specifically founded an organization almost 4 years ago called Redeemed Women here in South Dallas, in Dallas, Texas. And what I like to say is the Fair Park area of South Dallas, because South Dallas stretches so wide. I mean, you live in South Dallas, technically. I mean, yeah. So, so I'm in that old school, another poverty-stricken community, because I can relate to it. I got out, and I moved back in to work with the women in my community. And so that was the birthing of Redeemed Women, to address the spiritual need and build relationships and address the spiritual, physical, and vocational needs of all women, no matter what color you are, but specifically in the demographics of being impoverished. And I can relate because I've been through it. And so that's a little bit about my story, and I'm just excited to be here today, and excited to, dive deeper. I'm an open book, so feel free to ask me whatever you want to ask me. If I don't want to talk about it, I'll say I don't want to talk about it. I have no problem with it.
I believe you. I think I can. Yeah, I would have guessed that. I can ask you anything, and you'll just look at me. Nah, we're good. What's next?
Yep. What's next? On to the next one. Yeah.
That's one of the things that when we first met. And I was recording you actually doing an interview with somebody else, and I was just watching the conversation. And one of the things that really struck me was like, this woman, when people say they're an open book, you really truly are. And your book has encompassed an awful lot of things, and I think that's one of the reasons why so many people will gravitate to and have gravitated to your story, is because I think, people look for somebody who can understand them, and understand specifically what they've been through, the difficult things, and even understand more than them, and have that perspective. And so what I kind of wanted to talk about, because the idea behind our podcast is that it's called Same Blood, because it comes from the belief that we're all created. Yes. And we have built intrinsic value because we're created by God. And we're loved. And we have this value that just exists because we exist. And that we should treat each other with that same idea, with that same mentality. And that we should seek to understand each other, understand what people have been through, what they're going through, and just start conversations about that. And then we can talk about difficult things. Yeah. If you start from that place of like, I respect you, I value you as a person. Absolutely. And then we go from there. And so what I want to talk to you about, because we can go into 100 different directions with your story, right? We do, yeah. You have, because of your organization, you have a unique perspective of having lived through some things that most people can just imagine, can't even imagine. Yeah. But you've also had to share that story with other people and take that story outside of that community to bring in, working with different organizations. So when you have conversations with people who are trying to help, right? They want to help situations. They want to get to know what's going on. Where do people need to start with that, to start to understand what people are going through, that they have experienced things they haven't?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things that I recommend is that people start with building relationships. I am a highly relational girl. And I just feel like without relationships, you really don't get you don't get the full detail, and you show up with these myths, and you show up with these assumptions, and you find out that once you build a relationship, it's actually not even what you thought, or it doesn't go the way it looks like. I think about even you invited me, y'all, you and your brothers and all the things invited me to this podcast. But instantly when you were listening to my story, we immediately bonded in relationship, just in conversation. Because you were recording, you got to hear some of my stuff, and then you shared it back with me of how, y'all grew up in a big family and all these things. And I was like, oh, wow. And then look, now I'm here on the podcast. And so relationship, I feel like that, it's the hardest thing to do. It's messy. But again, when I think about what Jesus did, Jesus sat with the people. He came down with the people who smoked weed. He came down with the people who had their drinks and they were lit. He came down with the people who were on the street homeless and poor and talked to them. And I think that there's a favorite book that I have. I'm going to give you another one of my favorites. There's a favorite book for the listeners. It's called Same Kind of Different as Me. And I absolutely love this book with two different people from two different worlds, the rich and the poor coming together, sitting down, talking to each other. And I recommend people read this book because it's amazing. But it makes me think about what Jesus did. Jesus sat with the people. He did not judge them. And he said, oh, let me get to know you. And then guess what? I'm a speak life into you over time. And I'm not going to turn my back on you because you didn't do what I asked you to do. I'm going to just keep showing up. And eventually you'll ask me, Jesus, why do you love me? And so that's what I think about with people that want to know more about, communities or just other people, and how they can show up and do better oftentimes. And then don't show up with the my way or the highway notion. Show up, what I like to say is hands wide open, and not the way I want to do it, the way I think it should go, but just, hey, I just want to understand. I want to understand culture. I want to understand your background. I want to understand your beliefs. I just want to understand. And so that's what I recommend people do.
And that's something that has really opened my eyes recently. Mm-hmm. I think I had this idea in my head that I have been more open, and I've listened more than I actually had, right? And I realized, partially listening to the interview, just listening to you talk, right? Yeah. That other interview I was listening to, and I was like, oh, wow, man, I really need to be asking even more questions. I need to be, take some of the preconceived notions that I have and basically just put them to the side for a minute. Yeah. Some of it may turn out at some point to have been okay, but you don't know that. No. And if you make that assumption, well, you're wrong to begin with, right? Like it's the wrong heart to start with.
And truth be told, we all do though.
Right.
The problem is that people won't admit that they do that.
Right.
And I love that you just admitted that, but I do it too.
Well, and I think we all do. And it is really, it's one of those just kind of own that, if you want to grow. Now, one of the biggest things we seem to be facing as a culture.
Yes.
And as people is, well, you and I share slightly different shades.
Yes,
of skin
slightly.
Tone. Slightly.
I don't know.
My nickname would be
slightly.
White Chocolate, maybe. But so much is made of that.
Yes.
And now I don't think it's just that. I think it's that there's also people who just are raised in different cultures. There's a lot more that goes along with it. And I think it really is just people feeling like they don't understand each other.
Absolutely.
Right? But with the idea in the heart that we want to figure out how to make that not a barrier to friendship and community, right? So what do you say to people who are like, I all of a sudden feel like I don't even know how to have a conversation with somebody who doesn't look like me? Yeah. Maybe I didn't even realize, but all of a sudden I'm sitting here and I feel awkward. I don't even know how to, and they feel like there's this big elephant in the room.
Yeah.
So what do you say to people who are like, what do I do? Because I don't want this to be there, but what do I do?
Yeah, good question. I think, and again, this is just my own opinion. I'm always my favorite word is I'm gonna defer back to is relationship. You're gonna hear me talk about this the whole night. I just would say that for people to really have conversation with people that don't look like them, whether it be skin color, material class, educational class, excuse me. I think you're gonna have to get uncomfortable. You're gonna have to go to the coffee shop. You're gonna have to meet somebody that don't look like you. You're gonna have to walk over to them and say, hey, how you doing? You're gonna have to see them sitting at the table by themselves and speak. And you might even have to buy them a cup of coffee and leave your card and just say, hey, and it's so awkward. It's so, crazy. Or you're going to have to be willing to be like me. I do life with probably 85% of my friends are white. People don't know this, but literally 85% of my friends are white. And you're going to have to almost be like me, be the only black person in the room. And I'm okay with that because I do life with people really well. But don't get me wrong, it took me a while to get there. I had to put aside my my notions of, white people thinking I was dumb and that I didn't know anything. And I had to put aside my notions of being the token because I'm not that. But I also had to lean back into my faith because God has called me to be a bridge builder and somebody got to do it. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. But I am called to be a bridge builder. And he says, you know what? I'm going to use you to stand in the gap. So I'm going to put you in rooms that you look like you don't belong in. And guess what? You're going to invite those people that look like they don't belong in Fair Park. You're going to invite them down. And so it's very uncomfortable, but you got to be willing to do it. And if you're not willing to be uncomfortable, then there's nothing that I could say to kind of get you there. And you almost have to even be uncomfortable with your friends. I might even start with my friends saying, hey, who do you know that don't look like you? Invite them over. Let's have a cocktail because I love a cocktail friend. Yeah, I'm a coffee and a cocktail girl.
Right.
And so, I mean, sometimes you just got to be like, hey, and that's a bold conversation. Who do you know that don't look like you? And I'm not talking about just skin color again. I'm talking about if they don't believe in Jesus, can they be invited over? If they, if they didn't go to college, I didn't go to Baylor, so I'm just throwing it out there.
I didn't go to college at all.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if they didn't if their educational status is not the same, can they still come over? It takes being uncomfortable to not sit at the table with people in the same caliber. But man, I wouldn't have it any other way. That's just the way I roll.
I agree with that 100%. Well, 98%. If you have a doctorate, we can't be friends.
Yeah.
You just, no, I'm just,
yeah. Your language is going to be a little bit more than mine.
You're going to have to understand. I didn't sit in the same class as you did.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've thought a lot about recently, especially with just all the conversations we've been having, is that the enemy of change, the enemy of tearing down walls is comfort, because it's way more comfortable to just sit somewhere and leave it as it is, and to just gloss over whatever the shortcomings might be, to gloss over what your own blind spots, because you get comfortable there. And it's easy, and it's easy to just fall back into that when things feel like they're difficult, but then you also don't have meaningful impact, when you're just comfortable, and I think that's incredibly important. We need
and being
friends.
uncomfortable. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say you need those uncomfortable relationships. You need those uncomfortable friendships at times.
Yes. Well, I was just gonna say that being uncomfortable is gonna cause other people to be uncomfortable around you, and it might even cause you to lose some friendships because other people might not understand. Like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that you did a whole recording of this girl from the hood, and then now you having her over at your podcast? People do not understand that. They don't. And so, it's uncomfortableness all the way around.
Well, that really goes back to, again, the name of the podcast, the idea of same blood, is that if you strip all of it away, right? Whatever the color of your skin, your college or not education, where you grew up, all of that. If you view people through those lenses, you're just looking at things that make you different, largely, right? If you strip all of it away and you start with a base, you're created by God, you are loved, you have value. Yes. And from there, we can add other things that just give it texture, just figure out, let's fill in the rest of the blanks, but your value, you exist. And so, if you walk into the room, we're sitting down talking, I'm like, this is my sister. Yes. This is somebody who I know has amazing value, who God's created, and who we have so much in common, right? Yeah. And one of the things we talk about on the podcast a lot is the assumptions we place on other people. Yeah. And how a lot of times we have these assumptions. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Yeah. Right? But for me, one of the things that I'm trying to think more about is this idea that I want to get rid of almost all the assumptions and just start with some basic ones that I know are going to be true pretty much all the time. Yeah. And that is the assumptions that, one, that you want to be loved. Yes. And that you love. Yes. That you love your family and your friends. You want the best thing for the people that you care about, that you are passionate about something.
Yeah.
You have a purpose. You have a dream that you're pursuing. Like you have these different things that are true about you that are just the base level, just humans. We all share these. So if I put that on you, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to assume that, and I'm going to assume that we have that in common, right?
Yeah.
And then we can just figure out, well, what's your passion? You know, so what is that for you? And then this is what that is for me, and you can build off of that. You know, and fill in the rest of the blanks.
Yeah.
But
so what's your passion?
What's my passion? Now, that's a really good question. And I think that my passion has changed and adjusted, because I think for a long time my passion revolved around specific goals and ideas, like specifics. Like I'm a musician, right? So I do music, and it was acting, it was this, that, or the other thing. But what has become more and more, I think my passion is changing, is that my passion is to find out what it looks like with my life surrendered to Christ in every aspect of it.
Okay.
And it's a passion. It's not in a place I've arrived just yet.
Absolutely. But, we never get there all the way. Yeah.
But it's trying to figure out, like, so what does that look like if I do that, right?
Yeah.
And it's exciting, because as that happens, some of the weight that I put on other things kind of falls away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's opened opportunities for stuff like this. Like, a year ago, I would have imagined we'd be doing this podcast right now and having these conversations.
So great.
But here we are.
So
now your passion, we've sort of talked about it around it.
Yeah.
So how would you classify what your passion is? And then afterwards, I'm going to actually have you really go into detail about what Redeemed Women does.
Yes.
Because I want to get into the details of that. But as far as you personally, what do you think your passion is?
Personally, and I would say, let me just piggyback off you, that I would say that it's changed a couple times, 2 or 3 times over the years. But I think what I've kind of been locked in on over the last 6 years is I really have a heart to see women empowered and living their best lives. As women, we go through a lot of things. We carry a lot of weight. We're nurturers, we're supporters, we're all the things. But sometimes we get pushed up under the rug. We don't get the accolades that we deserve. We make way less in financial resources than men. And so there's just a lot of barriers that us women we go through. And so that is my passion, to help women live their best life, to empower them through words and through scripture. But to just really see them living on purpose and just being reminded of God's word. Psalms 139, 13 and 14, for you are beautifully, fearfully, and wonderfully made. And beautiful are your works. And I had to, get that embedded in me, because I did not think that I was beautifully, fearfully, and wonderfully made. And I'll tell you the story about chocolate, and why I go by chocolate now. It's not my stripper name. I've never been a stripper. So let me make that very, very clear.
Okay.
But chocolate started out as a derogatory. I used to get bullied for being dark skinned. I'm a shade darker than you are. Just a shade.
I mean,
and so I used to get bullied and picked on, and I was always overweight, and this dark-skinned girl. My mom had 8 kids. My mom and dad have 8 kids, and I'm the oldest on both sides. But specifically, on my mom's side, my siblings are biracial. And so I used to always get bullied and picked on for my skin being darker than most. And they used to say, this chocolate baby and this, that, and the other, or whatever. And it was hurtful. And when I turned 17, I think about, just being exuberant. That's one of my favorite words. And I, set aside. And I think about even what God has said, you're going to be set aside. Mm-hmm. And so, I think about my name. My name is correctly pronounced Aelicia. Right. People say Aelicia. It's not Alicia. There's no S-H-A in there, but okay. But I always would say, you may know some Aelicias, but you're not going to know very many chocolates. And if you do, you're not going to know the one that is like this one that's going to bring the spunk to the table. And so, when I think about that, I think about, man, if somebody would have spoke life into me and reminded me that I am loved and I am worthy and that I have purpose, that I probably would have been empowered, before now. But I'm living my best life too, of being empowered. And so to help other women see their the fullest potential, I get to live that out as well. And it's fun. And so I said all that to say that is what I'm currently passionate about.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that obviously ties in with Redeemed Women,
Yeah.
which is your organization. So we've kind of danced around it a little bit. We've hit on some of it, but let's talk about what is it that Redeemed Women does.
Yeah.
And also, I don't think people understand the need. And
Yeah.
I really want to talk about that because that was really eye-opening when I listened to the other interview. So let's start. What does Redeemed Women do?
Absolutely. So first of all, people need to know that Redeemed Women is a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to build relationships. And when we build relationships, we're able to address the spiritual, physical, and vocational needs of all women, specifically in the demographic of being in the impoverished community, and that is in the South Dallas Fair Park neighborhood. And I always like to make sure that I start with that, because for viewers that are listening that want to make donations, guess what? You can make your tax deductible donation to Redeemed Women. Because guess what? I'm the founder, and I have to advocate for the organization.
Right.
So anyway, plug that. But
Absolutely.
But,
Well, and we will link as well. They'll put a link under the video on Facebook, YouTube, all that.
Okay, great. Thank you. But Redeemed Women started based off just my own story of growing up in the hood. So I was born here in Dallas, West Dallas specifically. So I like to tell people Parkland Hospital. I was the Parkland Hospital baby. And then my parents divorced when I was 2. I moved to Southern California. So I lived in Inglewood, Watts, Compton. I mean, all the hood, LA, all the hood. And then I came back to Dallas when I was 10 and a half. I was diagnosed with bone cancer. And my mother has always been a drug addict. She's been on drugs since she was 17, and she just did not take me back and forth to the hospital like I needed to. So my cancer reoccurred and causing me to have to go to foster care, and then basically having to move to Texas to live with my dad's family because they were lower middle class and had a little bit more stability to be able to take care of me. And so came back here, and I didn't want to go back to California because I got tired of the earthquakes and I got tired of living in the car. I mean, so yeah, both of those things scared me. And so I, decided to make Texas my home, stayed here, and then here you go. I don't know anything about birth control, sex, abstinence, none of the things, STDs, none of the things. And I have sex and I get pregnant on my first time. And I'm like, oh, please.
Right.
So I get pregnant, and here I am. I'm 14 years old. I have a baby, no baby daddy. I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm basically on the streets because I have nowhere to go. And I move in with the baby daddy for a little bit. We stayed together 2 years, but that was just to have roof over my head. It wasn't because we were in a relationship. And then I pretty much had been on my own from then on out. And, when I was on my own, I ended up moving in with my grandparents, which is my dad's parents, and my grandmother, diehard Baptist, and grew up in the Baptist church. And so she raised me to love Jesus and all of these things. But I like to say I was a culture Christian. And I did not love Jesus because I said, what kind of Jesus would let me be raped by my dad and homeless and abused and all of these things? What kind of Jesus will let me go through that? But now I know, and there's hope, and I'll tell you when we get to the end. But just thinking about my story, and I got married at 18 years old to my high school sweetheart, and he beat the crap out of me for 5 years. We were married 10. And it was just a cycle basically of generational poverty. One, because I saw my mom get beat and I saw her stay. She was married 1,500 times. I saw her never work a day in her life. So I just saw that. And when I think about like the way I grew up, I was just like, man, this is really, really hard. But what I realized is that I was smart and I could do something different if I had opportunity. And that's what I lacked. I lacked opportunity. And so, God connected with some amazing people that started speaking life into me and pouring into me and discipling and all the things. And when I was 25 years old, I gave my life to Christ in my living room on my floor. I had just bought my home, and I was, single mother struggling, and I cried out to God, and he spoke to me through the book of James. And it was my grandmother's words that was playing in my ear that was saying, my grandmother used to always tell me, baby, you got to learn how to forgive and forgive. And I was mad at God. I didn't want to forgive. And I was like, screw this. I'm not doing it. And my grandmother had died when I was 17 years old, leaving me with a 2-year-old by myself. And I'm 25 years old. Now I'm learning that I need to forgive so I can move on. And it wasn't forgiving for them. It was for me. And so God just started shifting some things in my life. And so here I am, moved back to Dallas. And then God brought me to South Dallas with the hope. I actually bought my home for my daughter just for some income property. I was like, I'm going to leave legacy. I'm going to flip this house and I'm going to do all these things. And God was like, so you think. And, tell God your plan and watch him laugh at you, right?
Right.
And so, I'm thinking about coming to the hood because I can relate to it. And it was comfortable. I know the hood. But what I didn't know is that God had a plan for me there. And that plan was Isaiah 61, for the Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon me. He's anointed me to bind up the brokenhearted and proclaim the good news, and set the captives free. And so here I am in this hood where it's 86% black women. It is 86% black women that are single mothers, with 4 or more kids, undereducated, low income. I mean, all the things that I've walked through in my whole entire life. And I think about just God, like, I placed you here for a reason, and get ready for what I'm about to do next. And what I like to say is, I was placed with the full armor, right? And so he sent me through battlefield with cancer and homeless and abuse, and he put me in a war zone that I now know how to fight, which is South Dallas.
Well, that is a story that people watching will probably just listen to and go, wow. I know me, like I relate to basically none of that.
Yeah.
Just, life experience. And I'm not going to pretend like I do. Right.
Absolutely.
And so but that also puts you in a place that I couldn't go.
Right.
And gives you opportunities that I don't have.
Right.
I'm not equipped for
right.
the same way. So that puts you there. We're in South Dallas.
Right.
We've got a passion. We've got a mission.
Yes.
And now we have an organization. We have Redeemed Women.
Yes.
501c3. You can donate.
Yes.
Anyway. So what are some of the specific things that Redeemed Women does
yes.
to affect that change, to impact people? And then I know, remember, I listened to the last interview, there was a couple stories of some success stories you were sharing that were pretty exciting. So you can go into those if you want to. But
absolutely.
Yeah, so what are the specifics if someone's like, all right, I want to be in. So what are you guys doing?
So one of the things I think people need to understand is that there is no organization in South Dallas doing what we're doing, in terms of, one, a holistic approach, and 2, an organization that just serves women in this capacity. And I think you need to know that, because that is how it got birthed, because I was looking for resources and I had none. And so no one came into the community and said, hey, this is for you. You don't even have to drive out, walk out, or do anything. All you got to do is just be right here in the community. And so, one, we're addressing that need of being right there in the community. People can ride their bikes, they can walk to us, or they can hop on the DART bus and be to us in like 2.5 minutes. And so, one, we're not sending them out of the neighborhood. So that's first and foremost. But then second of all, we build that relationship and we address the needs on a case by case. We know that no woman walks in the door the same. We have women that come in that are coming off of prostitution or drug addiction or single mom or singles or domestic violence. And so everybody comes in with a different need when they walk through our door. But what they all get, they come in hopeless and they leave out happy. And we give them love, and we address the educational need. I tell people all the time, so here's some stories that people need to understand. So, people sometimes will look at, our client population, which we don't say clients, we say friends, because everybody's on the even playing field. And so, you get a friend that is coming out of prostitution, and you say, oh, well, she just needs to go get a job. Well, if I'm been on the streets 10, 20, 15 years, what does it look like for me to go and get a job? What is the job for me if I've been working the streets? Well, somebody has to be. And what I like to say is, we're the organization where you don't check the box here, you don't check the box there, you just fall in the middle, and we love you there because we know that there's no boxes over here. Sometimes you just don't check a box. But sometimes people need mock interview training to show up and know what it's like to be at work on time. And our on time is 15 minutes early. How early was I here when I got here?
You were here 15 minutes early.
Exactly. Yep. But if no one has ever taught me that, or if no one has ever taught me to wear what the proper clothes to wear to an interview, what does that really look like? So again, we do life skills, and I'm talking about soft and hard life skills training. I'll tell you this story that we had an education class, and we were partnering with another organization that was doing some retail and things like that, and we came in and we did the mock interview piece for them. And so one of the girls, she showed up at the interview and she was just chewing this gum, and it was really, really loud, and it was way over the top. The microphone wouldn't even be able to handle it if I showed you what it was like. And so, I'm talking to her, we're standing up, I shake her hand, and I'm kind of making eye contact with her, letting her know how to come in, greet the person that's interviewing her. And I'm actually nervous my own self because I don't know how to tell her to take the gum out of her mouth. And so she's like smacking in my ear, and the Lord just, softened her heart, but also gave me the right words to say to her. And I just said to her, hey, like what also will make your interview go better is if you take the gum out your mouth, because when you're talking, people are going to look in your mouth. And she said to me, Miss Chocolate, I didn't know that. And she took the gum right out of her mouth, and she did her mock interview all over again. I'm telling you, it was like a whole nother person showing up with confidence, held up high and shoulders back. A whole nother person. Well, what she said was, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. That shows you no one has ever taught her that.
Right.
And this is somebody that's 34 years old, and you would think most people would say, you're 34, you should know. And I'm telling you, that is one of my biggest pet peeves. Mm-hmm. I cannot stand for somebody to say that I should know. Well, how should I know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so when I think about those things, life skills, we do community enrichment days where we bring women in the community together to get to know their neighbors. Y'all have kids together. You need to know who's on the block, and so you can do life with each other. Or what if you need to go to the grocery store? We have quarterly events where we get the women in the community together, and the ladies live in the same apartments and don't even know each other. They come to our community events. Now they're carpooling together to go to the grocery store, or they're carpooling to go up to the kids' school, all because somebody met the need for them right here in the community locally. Mm-hmm. They didn't have to drive out to do that. So there's just a host of things that we do. Computer classes, basic computer classes, and not where you got the person hovering all over you, X, Y, and Z. The person that's really literally sitting there taking time with you, showing and not humiliating you.
Right.
These things meant something to me, so I know how to go and give that back. And again, a lot of my story ties into it because I was that woman that lacked opportunity, that didn't know a lot, that didn't have people investing in my education. And so how can I not give that back? And so those are the many things that we do at Redeemed Women. The list goes on. But I will share a couple of success stories. I'm so proud of what God has done in these 4 years. First of all, because when I saw you last in the summer, we were just getting ready to purchase real estate, mm-hmm. and we are officially real estated up. So I'm really excited about that. And our place is called The Well. The Women in the Bible Met at The Well. And so it's a safe place right in South Dallas that people can come to. Women only can come to and feel safe and secure. But one of the things that we love about our new location is that when we have asked women, hey, why do you like this? Why do you like Redeemed Women? They say that they love it because it's just for them. It's not for the kids. It's not for Boo Boo Kitty. It's not for the husbands. Grandmama and them is just for them. It's a place that they can feel empowered, enriched, equipped, all the ease, mm-hmm. So I really, really love that. And so we have real estate now, and we're getting ready to expand our nutrition program and our vocational program. And so the goal is to put me out of a job because I am about succession. I don't have to be around all the time. And so I'm really excited about this next season of Redeemed Women.
Okay, so I think, just listening to what you were just saying,
yes.
I think you tell me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like Redeemed Women is filling that gap between where a lot of people are, mm-hmm. and what people on the outside would view as what a first step is.
Yeah.
Because there's a step in the middle. There's this place where people are like, well, you should just go get a job. It's like, well, no, there's a step between those two. There might be opportunities that exist out there.
Yeah.
But there's a space in between here that if nobody's here, you can't get to that first step.
Right.
And so, for somebody like myself who doesn't understand the situation, it would be easy for me to look at it and go, well, okay, well, there's these, what about you do this, and this. And it's like, well, no, there's things to get you to here if you've never experienced that, if you don't have that knowledge. And that's one of the things that's so important and why it matters so much is that, if nobody helps, nobody bridges this gap to like get people into these places, to set them on this road.
Yes.
And it's like, well, then they can't, where are they going to go?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and I love that. I love that it's not a one size fits all. We're just going to, here's the program, hop in and we'll throw you through it and see what happens. I think it's incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
I think it matters a ton. One of the things that I have really was eye-opening for me about just everything we've done, all of the interactions I've had with you so far, right? Yeah. Before and then now this conversation is that people's life experiences, right? Trying to put yourself in other people's shoes, you really do have to get rid of your own preconceived notions, your own life experiences, and really understand that like nothing that I've experienced, I can't put any of that on somebody else. None of it. Yeah. I grew up in a a stable family with 9 brothers and sisters and and a mom and a dad, and growing up you're like, this is life, and then you realize like, oh no, that's an incredibly blessed life. Yes. Like that is, and that's something that I've realized more and more is like, wow, no, I need to understand that like this is not a lot of people's story. No. And that when I'm meeting people and I'm learning about people, to go, I just need to take all of whatever I've lived, and sort of put that to the side and say, let me just hear where you are. Let's go here, and then start from there. And if I don't do that, like it'd be so easy, and I know so many people do this. And they just walk into it and they're like, well, this should be what's going on, or well,
you need to do this.
Well, why don't you just do this? And it's like, wait, hold on, just stop. One of the things I heard you talk about previously that I wanted to go into a little bit is this idea. People come in and in the other interview, I think you used the term, people view themselves, the white saviors. Yes. Walk into communities.
That's what I said.
That's what you said. That's what you said. And they say, here's how we're going to fix everything. Yeah. And a lot of times it's a check, and it's just throw money at something, and probably feel good about yourself, right? Because you did something. Yeah. But one of the things that you talked about that I really want to go into is just this idea of teaching people to fish, right? Yes. And this idea. So can you really kind of dig into why that matters so much, and why that's like such an important part of what you're trying to do? Just the idea of like teaching people to fish as opposed to just giving somebody a fish. So why does it matter? Why does that distinction matter?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things I think about is when we take it back to scripture, I mean, that's what Jesus wanted us to do. Jesus wanted us to learn how to fish so we can then go and tend to our families, our friends, and all the things. Jesus didn't show up and give us everything. Right. And so because that's who I'm rooted in, I try to apply some of those biblical practices. But, when I think about my friends from the other community, my white community friends, that's my nice way of saying it, my friends from the other community. Mm-hmm. When I think about my friends from the other community, don't get me wrong, I understand that people have a good heart, and they, they want to help, or they don't know how to help, and they think that their way is the best way. But if it's not relational, again, relationships, you don't understand that you're doing more damage than not. What happens, especially in our community, what happens with my white community friends, they show up, they last for a year, maybe, that's a stretch, a year, and then they leave because it's hard, because they don't understand the culture, and they don't understand how black people sit outside and barbecue all night long. They don't understand that, or they don't understand how we sit in our front yards. We don't drive in the back and then just go in the house and don't talk to the neighbors. We don't do that in our community, and so oftentimes people don't understand that you can't come into a neighborhood without even being invited in, and then when you're invited, you actually have to like show up. And so And then like not even, and then, you know, just thinking about where we are today, economic development. Well, if you don't teach me how to fish, how am I going to know when you're gone? You're going to leave. And how am I going to know? I'm going to be back. I'm going to be in ruins and I'm not going to know anything, which then I'm not going to create legacy. Like for me, I have a daughter. So how am I going to teach my daughter some legacy if I don't even know? That's because you gave it all to me. And now I don't know what to do. And so it's very important. But I will tell you that even in the Black community, but in impoverished communities, you know what, man, we are hardworking people. We want to do our own thing. We do not want handouts. We want opportunity. We don't want handouts. Those are different. But, you know, and we want people that have different skill sets to teach us so we can go and do the things that we want to do better. We're business owners. We're entrepreneurs. We're all of these things. But we might not know how to do a business plan. Or we might don't know how to talk to the mayor and not have broken language. I ain't God. Sometimes people don't know how to do that and they need a little coaching. So if you teach me how to fish, I can show up and I can do the work. And you can scale back, and guess what? That won't tap into your taxes that much because now I know how to do it.
Right. I love that. You know, and I wish that more people, organizations were set up that way to be replaced. Right.
Yes.
To like, I want to step in and then leave. So we joke about this. My brother Jed and I, at the start of the podcast, we joke about this idea that, you know, our goal is that as soon as possible, we are irrelevant. Yes. Because like, what, were you just talking to people? That's the dumbest thing in the world. Everybody does that, right? But right now, people aren't doing that. So we're like, I guess we're going to do this. But ideally, we'd like to not be here, you know? And like you were talking about, like somebody coming in and being your successor and teaching people and, you know, and I think that's so important based on just the conversation, just listening to you talk about it. I'm like, man, I don't think I realized how much I didn't realize, right? I don't think I did. I didn't realize. Let me be honest here. I didn't. But I didn't realize how much of a massive need that specifically is, where it's like just, it's equipping, it's information, you know, it's teaching people, it's helping people take their God-given gifts, abilities, talents, passions, and saying, all right, here's the tools, right? And here's how you can use those to go do amazing things, you know? Right. It's helping bridge that, which is what you're doing, which is what Redeemed Women is doing.
And we're going to walk alongside.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And to me, that's one of the most exciting things when I hear your story and what you're talking about. It's like, man, that's so awesome because that means like you really can just like, you can pour into this and you can equip people and then you can realize, and then you can, if you step back, you know, it's going to keep going. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Really affect change. It's a hot topic. Affect change.
Affect change.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up pretty quick, but there's two other things we want to get to. One is, I know you are involved with Redeemed Women, but then also there's some other things that you're involved with. So what are some of those things?
Yeah, so I am heavily active in the community. I wouldn't call myself a community activist, but I like to know what's going on in the community. I am in the know. I sit on a few boards for organizations to equip and empower them. I also sit on the board for my church. I'm also an ordained officiant. So for people that are looking to get married, I am your girl that they can book with. And then I'm a motivational speaker and I'm an author. I wrote a book called Anointed, a survivor story from unspeakable pain to undeniable joy that's in bookstores now. I can give you the details about that later. And then I'm currently working on my second book. The Lord has given me 5 books to write. Okay. The number of grace, 5. And so, so I have a few things going on that I'm really excited about, but I just encourage people to reach out to me and I can give them more information.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will link, we'll link to a bunch of this. I'll get the links from you and we'll put them on the videos. Now, people who have watched this, listen to this, and they're going, all right, what can I do? How do I support Redeemed Women, right? What are some of the needs you have? And then also people who just want to be supporting you guys with prayer. Yeah. What does it look like? What can people do?
Absolutely. I always think about having my top needs on my tongue. My mentor told me a long time, have your 3 top needs on your tongue, but I'm going to give you 5 for today, you know, because my number is 5. But definitely 1, pray for us. Pray for me being boots on the ground, my team in the community. Pray for softened hearts because South Dallas is a a hard stomping ground. When you have a lot of poverty there and a lot of pain, it's not the easiest thing to do to see lives being transformed. And what I like to say is we are qualitative over quantitative. So no, we might not have 30 numbers, but if we have 5, I can tell you that their lives are changed. We have had women go to college through Redeem Women. We have had women be off drugs and employed through Redeem Women. So God is really, really showing up. So definitely pray for us. Secondly, I would say volunteer with us. We have plenty of volunteer opportunities. In COVID, we have volunteer opportunities because we're socially distanced, and our volunteers went down from 25 a week to 5 a week sometimes. So we are scarce, especially at this time of the year, but we just need volunteers. Volunteer with us. And we also have remote positions. So if you can't come down, don't feel like you can't do nothing. There's remote positions where you can do something. You'll have the links, and we can get them connected to the people that can give them volunteer opportunities. We're also recruiting for staff and board members. Our board is getting ready to change over, and so we're looking for new board members that have a passion for women and poverty. And then fifth, I would say get involved financially. Put your money where your mouth is. People do not understand that we are a small nonprofit. We are making a huge impact in the city, a huge impact. So follow us on Facebook and Instagram. But, become a monthly partner. $25 a month buys, bus passes, driver's license, birth certificates, all the things that women need to be self-sustainable. So become a monthly partner, make a year-end gift, give quarterly, add us to your bequest, all the things.
Right. Lots of ways.
Lots of ways.
However the money gets
there. But yeah, support local. Yeah, definitely support local.
Absolutely. And I think I heard you say this before, and I loved it. It was this idea that, like, the big organizations do amazing things, and we're not shading anybody.
No.
You said that. I'm not shading anybody.
No.
You said, but the boots on the ground. These organizations, the organizations that are really in the community, that are really trying to, really be there at the base level.
Yeah.
And if you can partner with some of those organizations, you absolutely should. So that's why I was so excited to have you on the podcast to come get your story, hear what you are up to.
I'll be back.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll be back. And share that with y'all, because there are so many opportunities to affect the community, to get to know the community, more importantly, to really dive in and learn.
Yeah, and you're invited.
Yes.
I've just invited
We have the invitation. You heard it here. So, again, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
RedeemWomen.org.
RedeemWomen.org. It'll be a link in the bio and in the information below the video. So, thank you again. And as always, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.